Tell you a little bit about our parish. It's 100 miles long, both sides of the river. If you picked it up and moved it north, it would run from Baton Rouge to Kenner. Kind of a tough area to cover with ambulance, fire, police, and in the crisis to get people around. So it's a challenging parish, and we need people always to step up to the plate whenever there's a crisis. The oil spill. First meetings with the oil spill with the BP representatives, we were told it wasn't coming ashore. Don't worry. Disbursement's going to break it up. It's going to be out at the Gulf. You're overreacting, Mr. Nungesser. Trust me, it's not coming ashore. When the president was coming down to Plaquemines Parish, we knew we had to be out on the front line, not in Venice. It's a 2-hour boat ride to where the marsh begins, where the pelicans breed, all the areas that are so important to our wildlife, to our way of life in Plaquemines Parish in coastal Louisiana. So we knew when we saw that oil gushing up on TV, it was going somewhere, and we really knew it was coming ashore. We had a group effort of local leaders across the coast, and so when the president got there, I said, Mr. President, we've got to react now. We need to take these offshore jack-up boats, put them out there with crews to look for oil every day, because we can't wake up one morning and have it across our marshlands. We've got to keep it out off the marshes. So the Coast Guard said, no, we don't think we need that. You know, we're in Venice. We got a command center. We leave there every day, and we're doing just fine, Mr. President. And he said, well, tell me what your plan is, Captain Us, right? And he says, well, we're working on one. And the president tapped the table and said, well, give Billy his jack-up boats until you come up with a better plan. And I got to tell you, those jack-up boats are out there today, picking up more oil than all the subcontractors for BP, saving more wildlife, and probably have saved over 25,000 acres of Plaquemines Parish from getting inundated with oil. Now, we started with one and added two and added three. I came up with the idea of jack-up boats because I was in the oil field. I built living quarters for the oil field. And I bounced it around some of the staff and said, you know, we've got to be out there in the front line. We can't fight it from Venice. We got to be there before it hits the marshes. And so it worked. It worked so well that the Coast Guard rented the rest of the jack-up boats and we couldn't get any more. But in that time frame of fighting and believing so much that we knew that oil was coming ashore, the frustration you saw on TV from me and many leaders was that we knew it was going somewhere. And to be constantly told, no, it's not coming ashore, was disheartening. And when it eventually did, we took a step back and said, you know, could we have tried harder? Could we have done something else to convince them? Because I myself picked many pelicans out of that oil and brought them to shore. Some made it, some didn't. And so you second guess yourself, and then you pull yourself back up and say, okay, what do we do next? We knew that oil was continuing to flow, that we had to do something to keep it out of the marshes. So we went to back on our coastal plan to put the barrier islands back. We scaled them down to 6 foot, 120 foot wide. We knew that would give us a fighting chance. It's easier to pick up off the sand. You can't clean it out the marsh. So we brought it to the governor. The governor loved the idea. We sent it up the chain of command. The staff of the president said, no way, too much money. It's not going to be built in time. It'll mess up the environment. We can't do it. So I had been a little critical of the response on TV, so I wasn't invited to the second meeting with the president in Grand Isle. Okay, I was a lot of criticism, sorry. So myself and President Craig Tefera from St. Bernard, I said, we've got to get to the president. Come on, we're going to take a boat. I knew they closed the road and the airways, but I figured we could sneak in backside of Grand Isle. Luckily, the wildlife and fishery was watching the waterways for the president. We had been with them on many occasions with the governor out to the marsh, so they waved us through. When we got in, they had moved it from the wildlife fishery building to the Coast Guard station. When we got to the gate, the lady said, y'all are not on the invitation list. I said, we'll call the White House and tell them I'm here and I'm on the other line with Anderson Cooper and see if they can put us on the list. She came back and said the president's staff said to let you in. So we got in there, And the president walked in, and he says, Billy, I thought we were on the same page. I said, we are, Mr. President. I asked Thad Allen to resign, not you. And the governor's like, Billy, calm down. I said, well, no. I said, Mr. President, you made things happen when you came to Plaquemines Parish. But for your staff to turn down these berms from Washington, D.C., without seeing what we're doing every day, thousands of birds are losing their life. The fish are dying. The marshes are dying. Our way of life is being destroyed. And it's absurd to make a decision from Washington that this won't help keep the oil out. So he said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Billy. In the next 2 to 3 days, I'm going to send my staff back down. We'll have a roundtable discussion, and you've got to convince them it's the right thing to do. I said, that's fair. And he said, within 24 hours after that, I'll give you my answer. Thad Allen, make it happen. But come back with a yes or a no. So we did. We had the conference at the Port of New Orleans. Garrett Graves gave a remarkable presentation of the berms. And then the panel went to the front and started tearing them apart. You know, what's it going to do to the coastline? Is it going to make the oil go to Florida? Is it going to make the storm surge more to other states? Every reason in the world not to build them. We can't build them in time. The stand won't hold. And then about halfway through, we took a break. And Thad Allen said, we're going to wrap up in a minute. And I raised my hand. I said, well, what about us? Do we get to talk? And he says, well, no. I said, well, that's not what the president said. He said a roundtable discussion. I'm going to call the White House. So he said, well, hold up. We'll give you 5 minutes each parish president, the mayor of Grand Isle and the mayor of Lafitte. And they all of them did a remarkable job. And at the end, I said, if you don't like this plan, show us a better plan. Nobody up here at the table, when they ran for parish president and mayor, checked off oil spill responder, checked off, you know, sand berm builder. But we've come up with some pretty creative ideas because we have to protect our parish and our way of life. Y'all have come up with nothing but reasons why not to do something. And that's unacceptable. So I said, before I close, let me ask you, the lady head of the Interior Department, I said, are you for or against the berms? She says, well, I got some problems. I said, no, ma'am. For or against? And I asked her 3 times, and she said, well, I could be okay with them. So I turned to Thad Allen, and I said, that's a yes. And I asked the other 4 panelists that now were sitting in the front row, I said, what is your opinion, for or against? And I said it 3 times, and they didn't answer. I said, all right, let's make this easy. If you're against the berms, raise your hand. Nobody raised their hand. I said, you got to go back to the president and said, everybody's in favor of it. 23 hours and 43 minutes later, we were in a press conference in Venice talking about how bad we had just been slammed at Pasalutra. We pulled over 100 birds out of the oil. And someone came up and whispered to the governor that the president just called and approved the berms. And they are working. They have caught oil. And they're going to protect coastal Louisiana from storm surge and saltwater intrusion. So we'll be able to see the diversions we do have create more marsh. Without those barrier islands, we will never survive long-term from oil, hurricanes, or anything else. So it's a great move that we got these done, and we owe both of the things to the President of the United States. Now, he gets a bad rap, and they don't want to hear me go on TV and talk positive, and I'm a Republican, but I give credit where credit is due. Each time we could sit face-to-face with the President, he made things happen. But the people around him are not delivering the whole message to him to, in my opinion, allow him to make good decisions for coastal Louisiana and for this country. And that's why I thought Thad Allen never was the hands-on guy, never was out there on the front line, and was misleading not only the local elected officials, but America. We didn't need Thad Allen on the TV telling us what was going on well. We needed BP standing there telling us, and we needed Thad Allen standing on the side, but what about this, what about that? Criticizing and making sure they were telling us the truth. Anybody can read from a teleprompter and tell you what's going on. It gave the American people a false sense of hope that we really knew what was going on. So, you know, from the local level, we have to step up to the plate when the federal government or the liable party, BP, does not. And we were very proud of all the local elected officials across the coast. We came together and worked as a team. And I'm glad to say we're winning this war against the oil, and we're going to save our coastline. Thank you so much for inviting me today.